First year offices last year averaged 1.3 million in gross sales. Territories open 5+ years averaged 6.4 million.
Your number one person did over 40 million. You're going to hear about this business model, what makes them special, what makes them, the 800-pound gorilla here.
We want to make sure that our owners are set up for success. They focus on their one first territory. They grow it to be uber successful. Then they can replicate that success in multiple locations afterwards. They've just got that sales-driven DNA about them. We take a very concerted effort in making sure that, again, we're setting owners up for success, even from call one with our team.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited today to bring you Melissa Davis. She is the Managing Director for franchising for Express Professional, which is the largest franchise staffing company in the United States. So you're going to hear about this business model, what makes them special, what makes them, the 800-pound gorilla here, and see if it's a good fit for you maybe. So welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much, Brian. I am very excited to be here.
Awesome. So what's the quick backstory? How did Express become, kind of the giant company that it is today?
Yes. So Express has a pretty storied history. The company itself was founded in 1983. So we've been franchising for more than 40 years. Express Employment was actually born from the ashes of a small staffing company that was based in the Pacific Northwest years ago. And so, back in the 80s, it started as a, temporary staffing firm and has grown now to your earlier point, 800-pound gorilla, 860 locations today. So, yeah.
What's the business model? Let's start there. So people think staffing companies, they probably think, like tons of turnover. People have like a negative connotation, I think, around, at least some of the people in my world. So let's walk through some of the myths that maybe people have and kind of break some of those to talk about why so many people, 800 locations, the results in your FDD, you share a ton of stuff. People have built some massive companies, tens of millions of dollars in revenue. But there's obviously like tons of misconception on what it takes. So let's go from the most basic side of it, of like the business model itself. Who are your customers?
Our customers are small, medium, and large local companies who are looking to hire. Our customer base is also, too, people who are looking for jobs. So, I kind of describe the basics of the business model as our franchise owners and their teams are the middle person between those local companies that are looking to hire and then people who are looking for jobs. We bring those two groups of people together. So, but our focus largely is temporary placement, although we also provide direct hire and evaluation hire staffing services. Largely temporary placement with small, medium, and large companies, typically local companies that have between like 10 and 500 employees are kind of our core customer base.
And what are some of the roles that they're like? Warehouse workers, I'd imagine, accountants, staffing up for tax season. Like, is that agriculture, right?
Frankly, the answer, Brian, is yes to all the above. So we're a full service staffing company. So we really do not have any industry specific focus when it comes to the business mix at Express. And kind of what makes up our core business is light industrial positions, which are, you mentioned like warehouse, manufacturing, transportation. Those are good kind of examples of light industrial positions. But we also provide what we call an office service role, which would be more of your white collar office-based positions. It's really about, franchise owner, their employees, building that relationship with the local company and becoming the sole service provider for that company, top to bottom in the organization, no matter what they need. Entry level, senior level, white collar, blue collar. Our focus is really on being that full service provider.
They're doing more than just entry level. I think they're doing some of that. You mentioned placement. So it's headhunter. I've hired agencies to help try to find a CFO for the office. Is that something that Express would also help with?
Yeah, we absolutely can help with that. It probably, that kind of like C-suite, senior level staffing, it probably makes up less than 10% of the business mix. If we're talking about, if I'm setting expectations as far as Express and our core business, but we absolutely will provide it. Yes.
You got to find these companies, small, medium, large, like industrial, transportation, et cetera. So the role of the franchisee is the salesperson to start, right? So they're the ones going out in their communities, building these relationships. What are some of the traits that you think takes to be a successful owner in this business?
Yeah, I think just a surface level inclination towards sales translates really well into this business model. And I kind of introduced Express as we are a B2B sales business that happens to be in the staffing industry. Everything that our owners and their employees do every single day, top to bottom, is anchored by sales, whether we're selling a staffing solution to a local company or we're effectively selling a job opportunity to a job seeker. So, ideal owners for us, owners who find great success in this industry, in this business model, are those who have a high degree of sales experience, or they've just got that sales driven DNA about them. They like talking to people. They love making connections in the community. And then someone too who has experience leading and managing teams, because you're going to have a team of employees who are deploying these sales and recruiting strategies per the direction of the franchise owner. So being able to lead and mentor and coach that team to achieve, that strategy.
Let's talk about the actual hiring of the process. So you play the middleman, right? So you're going out. I sign up warehouse people, whatever they need. They need 5 people. I have a database, right? Because I'm building that at the same time of candidates who may fit. I make the placement. Let's walk through. I guess from a number standpoint, let's start from the number standpoint. How much can you talk about from the business model? What are we charging? What are we paying the person? What are we charging? Can you speak to that first?
I can give an example. Yeah. And the example will be pretty true to form. With temporary placement, if we're talking, entry level to mid-level type position, which of course would be different than that senior level placement that we do. But if we're talking temporary placement of an entry level, mid-level position, let's say, and I'll give just a simple example, your all-in payroll burden for the temporary associate is $20 an hour, let's say. You're going to pay the person that's hired $18 an hour, and you've got an additional tax burden on top of that. So your payroll cost is $20, but you're going to bill your client a markup on that. So let's say your bill rate to the client is $27 an hour. And that gives you a $7 spread, or what we call a gross margin. And it's in that gross margin markup that our owners make their money.
So then they're saying, hey, we're making gross, right, before any of our fees, $7 per hour for every hour that this person works. Whether it's 40 hours a week, and then how many weeks, and multiplied by how many people, multiplied by how many clients, and then that's where I think it can become pretty large, right? When you make that hire, when you make that placement, they come to an agreement. Logistically, just walk us through. Are they paying the person direct? Are they paying you? You're paying them, is what it sounds like. Who sets their schedule? How involved are you as Express with the management of that person?
Most of the business is managed and kind of handheld by the local franchise owner and their employees, right? They're the one who is having that face-to-face daily interaction with the client, with the associate. And so part of that, the nuance of the sales cycle, is that the local franchisee is understanding from the client what the labor needs are, the hours of operation, and then they are communicating that to the associate that's hired to fill that position. Where Express headquarters comes into the equation, the franchisor, is, one of the areas of support that we offer to owners is we, Express headquarters, handle 100% of that payroll funding for the temporary associate. We, Express headquarters, are actually the W-2 employer for that associate. So every Friday, Express headquarters is the one who's cutting that $18 an hour paycheck to the person that's hired. And we also handle the client invoicing and payment processing. So the client submits their payment to headquarters. We process that payment. We're taking out of that payment the payroll. And then what's left is that gross margin that I described earlier.
So it's a huge benefit. For a franchisee to come in and have to front the payroll, because you're they got to get paid every week, but you're not collecting invoices for 30, 45 days probably on terms. And then you also have the liability and everything that comes around with hiring people and employment laws and payroll taxes and wage garnishments. And there's tons and tons of stuff that I know my office, we have 200 employees, and tons of stuff that we have to deal with on a full-time daily basis that, so you guys take care of all that. So the franchisees can then focus on driving sales and really the operations of the business, and a little bit less in the back office.
Yeah. And we're, the headquarters team is 350 people. Here, we're based in Oklahoma City. We have 100 people that are in the field supporting owners every single day. But candidly, Brian, the company, again, we've been around for 40 years. So we have the bandwidth, the resources. Financially, we're in a position to take on that burden and that responsibility for our owners to free them up to do what is most effective and most needed, which is build those relationships with job seekers and companies in their local market. And we do all the complicated, boring stuff in the back. Yeah.
Let's talk about how, like, I don't know, how big you can build one of these businesses. Can you speak a little bit to some of the top performing franchisees, and then, whatever numbers, and you got a ton in your FDD here. I mean, pages and pages, which is awesome.
Yeah. For those that are familiar with franchising and franchising law, you know that I have to refer only to what's in our franchise disclosure document. But yeah, we have very strong financials in our franchise disclosure document. First year offices last year averaged 1.3 million in gross sales in their first 12 months, and territories open 5+ years averaged 6.4 million in gross sales. So very strong financials. Yeah.
Your number one person did over 40 million in revenue. Looks like you got 3 years, 35, 40 and 40 again. So pretty consistent. How big is that? Is that multiple territories, multiple states? How big is that operation?
That is a single territory within a rural market. I can't say explicitly which one, but you would never point to it on a map. You would never guess it in 100 years. That is a single territory owner. So you can do a lot with one franchise location. And we have many, I mentioned earlier that we've got more than 800 locations, but only less than 200 of those locations are multi-unit owners, and we do have multi-unit owners, but they typically have 2 locations on average. So we don't have a lot of the behemoth ownership groups that have 15, 20 locations.
Is that intentional, I guess, is the first question? Like, do you want them to have less, but then maximize each one of them?
Yeah, it is intentional. It's by design. We do not award multiple units up front here at Express. We want to make sure that our owners are set up for success and that they get their foot in the door. They focus on their one first territory. They grow it to be uber successful. And then once they've got that team in place, the resources, the know-how, how to be successful in this industry, then they can replicate that success in multiple locations afterwards. So it is by design. Yes.
That's good. I think it's a lot of it too. In this, as people find these different franchises, it's like trying to find one that matches their goals, their skills, like what makes sense for them. And in some ways, I mean, I also get the fact that, like, if we had one location with like one office space that we can make massive, and we don't need all the additional headaches that come with tons and tons of incremental locations. I mean, his margins are going to be significantly better than if he had 10 locations that did 4 million each versus one location with 40. There's definitely an appeal to that too, I think, if you do it right.
You and I, Brian, were talking offline before we started recording, but I had mentioned that in a prior life before Express, I was in the QSR franchise space. And that's a good example of, having multiple units is really part of that strategy. You always hear about the owners who've got 5, 10, 15 Taco Bells or something like that, which Taco Bell's great. I love it. I'm a fan. But a B2B service brand like Express is often very different. You can do a lot with just a single territory.
I know you guys have a very active resale platform, right? 800 locations across country, 40 years, right? There's obviously turnover through just people wanting to retire and get out. And then there's also a number of people who I think get into this thing and it's not the right fit. And so maybe if you talk a little bit about just, how someone should approach one of these resales, good or bad, and just kind of what that feels like.
And I like that you said good or bad, because I think another common misconception is that some resales can be bad resales. And I think there's a lot to it. You and I know that, being in the industry. But if I'm talking about Express specifically, we have a very robust resale program, which means we have a number of existing locations that are for sale. To your earlier point, 40-year system, we have a lot of owners who are aging out. Maybe, we even have some active resales right now where we're talking second generation owners are aging out. And so we've got retirement, but yes, we also have businesses that are for sale right now. Owners have determined after a handful of years that they want to move on to something else. It's no longer a fit for their lifestyle, their interests, whatever it might be. But to put it kind of in perspective, 860 plus locations. Right now, we've got about 45 active resale listings. And in the industry, you typically kind of hear that 10% or so resale turnover every year is kind of healthy. So we haven't even hit that mark yet. And our resales vary in investment range from, we've got some active businesses that are priced less than 100,000, which is a great and good resale opportunity for an entrepreneur who's interested in franchising, is open to a startup. Well, instead of a startup starting from zero, you can get in with a brand like Express into these great markets for, same investment cost, but you're jump starting yourself 1-2 years in. And then we've also got, on the opposite side of the resale inventory, longtime owners who have built significant businesses and, they're at a higher investment range, but you're jumping in 15 years. And so we've got a little bit of everything for everyone, but there really are benefits to resales no matter kind of where that business is at in their trajectory.
Then I see too, huge range. I think a lot of it depends on, like you said, is it skeleton crew, like didn't really work, or you've got multiple ones, at least as of today, that are close to $1 million asking price, which I would assume means they've got great systems and teams and process and client books and all that. I know it's not a recurring revenue business, right? But it is reoccurring, right? Where you have similar clients who come back for similar years for seasonal stuff. So someone's going in, maybe they're looking at one of these $1 million things. They've got 300 grand of income. They're buying 400 grand, whatever it is. They got to go out and continue to kill it, right? Every day to make it happen, versus how much is kind of like, there is this book of business to some degree that may come back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's like people get confused where it's like reoccurring, like there's reoccurring contract-based revenue, which is not this. Right. But then there's this other component of there's seasonal businesses that need to hire people every year or like whatever it is. And like, if you're the go-to person, there's a very high chance that you're going to get that business again, if you do a good job.
If you do a good job. Yeah. And that's kind of the caveat to it. So when I'm talking to someone and I get asked that question, which I do quite often, and it's a great question, I'd rather set the expectation that you need to kill it every single day. And your strategy needs to be to continually gain new clients every single day, as opposed to setting the expectation that there's going to exist any kind of cushion in the business, even if it's reoccurring clients who, 4 times a year, they need 75 associates, so they come to Express. Because this business is so relationship based, it's great if you've been able to service that relationship, but there are also competitors out there in the landscape. And so there's no guarantee that just because a client who relies on that contract labor multiple times throughout a year will come back to you in second quarter and third quarter and fourth quarter. Now, if you do a great job at maintaining that relationship, fantastic. But this business is volume based. So it very much, the key to success is putting as many people to work as possible for as many hours as possible and working with as many clients as possible. So I'd rather set the expectation that even with like $1 million existing business that's for sale, it's all about servicing existing clients and staying focused on getting new ones as well.
Awesome. I kind of asked this a little bit earlier, but how much do you think the franchisees team is dealing with problems with the staff? This guy, like, are they dealing with it directly, or are they just getting a call? Like, this guy shows up and he smells like marijuana. Is it the kind of thing where their phone's blowing up all day with all these problems? Like, hey, this guy's not working out, send me somebody else. They get him somebody else and it's there. Like, what is that? Like, how much stress? Like, you've got all these people, but they're not like really your employees, right? Because you're placing them, but you're still the conduit that someone wants to call and complain or whatever it is. And then it grows, right? Because you have thousands of people that are kind of going in and out of your world. I mean, obviously, building $40 million businesses, they figured it out. I don't know. What should someone expect who's coming into this for that to look like?
I'd say that what you should expect is the degree to which you are properly following the Express system and properly screening and interviewing and onboarding these associates will directly relate to the degree to which your phone is blowing up because you've got clients that are dissatisfied, right? I'll use your earlier example. You mentioned an associate showing up to a work site and they smell of marijuana or whatever it is, right? I dare say that if that associate showed up on the work site in that manner, they might have shown up to an in-person interview with Express in that same manner. So was that in-person interview conducted? So there's a high degree of accountability and responsibility of our recruiters who are internal employees of a local franchise making sure that they are properly screening, interviewing, prospecting these associates before placing with the clients to make sure that you're mitigating some of the stresses
Okay.
and the
Yep.
risk involved. From a client's perspective, they don't know that Express headquarters is technically the employer. They don't know that. It doesn't feel like that to them. It doesn't look like that to them. So the franchise owner and the employees take on the responsibility of making sure that you are placing the right candidate with the right client. The situation, we're in the people business and people are sometimes unpredictable.
Yep.
There's never going to be a scenario where you're not needing to like replace an associate for a variety of reasons, but
Yep.
it's not a common occurrence.
How many employees do you think like an average franchisee is going to have?
Like internal employees on their
Hundreds?
payroll or
internal,
associates?
external? Yeah, internal,
Yeah,
external.
so internal employees, like if we're talking about a brand new Express office, a startup, franchisees opening up with 2 full-time employees. They're typically hiring a third full-time employee, maybe 6 months, 12 months in, and it's in that second, third, fourth year that they might grow their internal team to 4 or 5 employees. So similar to the earlier conversation we had that you can do a lot with a single territory, you can do a lot with a very small team who's in the right seat. They've been trained.
Sales recruiters, right? They're the main 2 roles that you're constantly looking to grow.
You're going to have a support employee as well. So if you're opening up brand new office, you had mentioned earlier, franchisee is really going to be in that sales business development role for probably first 6, 12 months. So they can learn it, breathe it, live it. And then they're hiring sales team, growing a sales team. But the 2 full-time employees hired on day 1 is a recruiter and a support role. And then you're growing that team over time to support the growing business.
And then do you also see that associates that they bring on, that they vet, that they place, that they kind of, those same people stay in the system and get kind of positioned into other temporary roles that fit their skills?
You're from an associate and like labor pool, you're going to have a few different categories, right? You're going to have people who, you hear about this gig economy, right? And there's so many people nowadays who love the flexibility of contract positions. They can go work for a short amount of time. They can get the money that they need to support their lifestyle. They can take a break. They can go on vacation. They can do whatever and then jump back in when they want to. You're going to have other people who are in career transition. So they come to Express so that they can find a new role with a new company, but they're looking for more of a full-time position. Great. We'll help you out. And so you're really going to see kind of a varied inventory, although I hate to use that word, but your associate pool will be varied. 1 in 3 of our associates actually comes to us by way of referral. So one associate who's employed by Express referring a friend, a family member who's looking for work as well.
What are some of the big goals for Express Corporate in terms of growth or accolades? What's like the number 1 priority this year for 24?
It's a great question. And I know that a common answer would be we want X number of territories awarded or X number of owners. But our focus really is on growing our individual franchise locations from the 1.3 million in year 1 to 6.4 and beyond that. And so that's really where a lot of our focus lies. We're, again, 40-year history, so we're in a position to grow strategically with the right people. We're not selling franchises for the sake of having location 861. Our focus and our goal right now, long term, is to get to putting 1 million associates to work, because that's where our culture lies, is helping as many people find jobs as possible. So that's the goal. 1 million people to work.
1 million people work, and then making franchisees more profitable, like driving more sales, right? Because it's a volume-based business. Can you speak to any of the things internally that you do to help franchisees become more profitable, to drive more sales? Running the business itself, right? Because the money can come in, but if you don't know how to handle it can all go out the door. So like, what do you guys do for supporting to make franchisees more profitable?
We take a very vested interest in making sure that our owners are profitable and that they're successful. Again, 40-year history, we know how to do this and we know how to do it really well. And so we want owners who are investing in a franchise because they want to invest in that process, that support. All new owners, of course, go through new franchisee training, which for us is 4 weeks long. But beyond that new franchisee training, all owners are also enrolled in a 2-year coaching program. They're having weekly, quarterly, monthly calls with completely separate team at Express headquarters who again are making sure that our owners and their internal employees are following the system, that they have, they're watching business metrics and things like that in their first full 2 years. Those are foundational, critical years. And so best practices need to be followed, and we make sure that they are. And then, of course, every Express territory office has assigned to it who we call a business coach, a corporate employee who's regionally based, and they really are that daily operational point person who's checking with the owner, their team. How's the business going? How can we grow it? What do we need to change? So lots of support.
Awesome. So you've been franchising a while. I mean, you've seen a lot of new franchisees come in the system. Many of them succeed. Some don't, right? Beyond the obvious of they didn't follow the system, is there anything else that you think of in terms of like things that new people get wrong or mistakes they make or misconceptions they have?
I think, with Express specifically, with some of the owners who we've had who have come into the system and decided that this industry, this business is just not for them, it's kind of tied back to the sales piece. We try to really outline when we're talking B2B sales, we're talking sales. This is not a wait for the phone to ring kind of industry. It's highly competitive. It can be highly lucrative, but you've got to go out there and get it.
And so what are some of those questions that you got, I guess, ask that they need to ask themselves to say, because some people say, yeah, I'm good at sales, but it's like, you have some like qualifying questions or things they actually have to do as like part of the process. I know cold calling is one of them, right? 100 calls a day.
Yeah. To put it into perspective, when I'm talking to someone and they say, oh yeah, I can do sales all day. And I say, okay, tell me about the sales that you've done. Because this is all about a relationship too. And so tell me about your background. Tell me about your previous roles. Tell me about your career. What have you done? And peel back the layers of that sales piece. And I'm trying to discern is the sales that they're talking about in a retail location. They worked at a retail location and they had people coming in and they were scanning retail items. Well, that's not the sales I'm talking about. I'm talking about 200 out cold calls a week. I'm talking about pulling on door handles and trying to shake a stranger's hand. I'm talking about networking. I'm talking about sitting across the table from someone and trying to help them see the value in what you're offering. And we're not hawking a product. This is a service. So that too has a different sales nuance to it. And so, we take a very concerted effort in making sure that, again, we're setting owners up for success, even from call one with our team. Are they going to be a good fit in this industry?
Is that they were in enterprise sales part of it? Like if they sold software for some software company or whatever, does that normally translate, or is that a good indicator in terms of things that people have done? Are there any careers that you have seen have a higher degree of similarity?
Someone who's been in a sales role before, whether it's like equipment sales, medical sales, technology sales, but they're actually like outbound sales is part of their career experience. That's great. But we've also got a lot of owners who have left like middle management or upper level management corporate careers where maybe they've managed sales teams. So conceptually, they understand achieving sales goals, having metrics in place, holding teams accountable. And even that experience translates really well. We've also got owners, though, who used to be CPAs and real estate agents even. And there's a lot of experience that can translate into this industry. It all comes down to kind of personality type.
Personality, their drive, their willingness to do whatever it takes, and then they're just comfort level with it all, right? I mean, anybody can do anything. It's just a matter of how motivated you are to do it and learn a new skill or whatever it is, right? Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about Express. I think it's an awesome opportunity for the right people. It's super unique and to be part of a large company with a great culture. I know you've got a number of franchisees that have been with you, like you said, second generation. I've talked to a few of them and they live and breathe and eat the brand. They love it. And so I think that's really awesome. I think isn't your tenure like over 10 years?
12 years. Yeah.
Franchisees,
it was
12 years. It was something like that. It's in the FDD.
Yeah.
I remember
12 years
seeing,
currently.
Which is really unique. Yeah. So average franchisee 10 years, 12 years, right? It's a 10-year contract. So
5-year actually.
It's a 5-year. So they're renewing multiple times, which speaks to the, like, if it works for you, like it's tremendous growth, right? If it doesn't work for you, it's out and whatever, you find something else that you enjoy. But I think that's a unique, not many brands around 40 years, but not many brands report on metrics. That's very proud of it. Interesting to see. So cool. So if anybody's interested in learning more, you can reach out to my team and we can get you connected to Melissa and her team about new territories, about all the resales they have all over the country. Some of them are killer deals. Others are, cash flowing territories that you can step into and make them even better. So,
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Melissa.